Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is David Finkel. Hi, David. How are you?
Hello. Wonderful to be with you today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm very excited about our conversation. So we met at one of your events a few months ago, and I was so impressed that I decided to sign up for the program, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to talk about you today and about the program. And I have a lot of questions, so I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting conversation. But First of all, our bio. So we can own it together, but that's okay. It's you, it's not me. So David, you are the CEO of Maui Mastermind, North American premier business coaching company, which helps business owners grow their companies and get their lives back. And your clients enjoy an average annual growth rate of 5 times higher than the average privately held company in the US, which is definitely great results on that. And while at the same time increase their company's owner independence by an average of 97.4%. That's a big average. That's an interesting average. It's like almost 100%.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about the sad part is the state of affairs, the starting point. The average business owner who has an established company, the business owns them. They don't own the business in general, which is why I'm excited to geek out on systems today with you.
I know, me too. I mean, you know how much I love systems, and that's you too. So that's great. And so you have advisors, and you work with people, and you personally scaled companies with an aggregate value of 63 billion. You have a syndicated column on Inc.com, Force.com, millions of readers every year. Go on and on. Obviously, you wrote a book, so we can spend an entire podcast talking about your bio. But I think the readers with listeners, we're gonna direct them to your website so they can read it, and we can jump into the questions. What do you think?
I think that's great. Let's do it.
All right. So, David, tell us a little bit about your background. What led you to start Maui Mastermind?
Yeah. So, I mean, I used to be an athlete. This is many years ago. I was training to play in the Olympics. I played field hockey on the U.S. national team, and I got hurt. I grew a tumor in my hip that wasn't discovered until after the Olympic trials. And so when I left sport, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of got lucky. I fell into a business with a guy I met at a workshop. His name was Peter. We became dear friends. We started this company together. I had never done a business before that was successful. We scaled this thing from zero, and at the end, it was when I sold my share of the business, we were doing about 3 million of profit a year with no debt, no outside people, just the two of us. And yet a lot of what we did in retrospect was through sheer force of will. I mean, I can remember in the early years being on the road 2.5 weeks every month doing workshops and events or business trips. Working 70, 80 hours a week. And so when I started Maui Mastermind, which was about, I think we're 23 years ago, and I started doing it this next time, I had the exit from this earlier business, and there was another real estate company that I also sold to Peter at the same time. I bought him out of a little bit of some of the stuff we had together. He bought me out of the majority, but Maui Mastermind, kind of became my playground for where I wanted to go next. And I was enjoying the teaching, doing this. And then, Adi, one day, my wife finally gets pregnant. I mean, we had been trying for like 5 years to get pregnant. We had used fertility treatments, and finally the IVF took. And so I find out in 2008, we're going to have twins. And I'm like, well, I love to teach, but I'm not going to be on the road teaching. It's changed. And so I said, well, how do I want to reimagine this business where I don't need it to be nearly as reliant on me? even though I'm having fun with the other. And that was the genesis, almost 20 years ago when we changed it over and we figured out a new model. And then as we scaled in earnest, we had all the normal scaling challenges of taking something that was initially fairly owner reliant and pushing that reliances into business systems, internal controls, and really well qualified team members who were cross trained, and a culture that said we believe in building strategic depth.
Yes. So one thing that I noticed when I went to one of your events is the quality of people that you attract to the event, to your company. You really work with high caliber, enthusiastic, wanting to succeed people.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's funny. So you talk about systems. So one of the best systems are your referral systems. And so what was funny was that you and I met through a referral of a mutual client. John, who owns a construction company, is a client of yours. And he's also been for almost 10 years a client of ours. And he
And a big
introduced the
shout
two of
out to
us.
John. I interviewed him on my podcast, and I'm going to include it in the show notes because he's not only is an amazing business owner, he's an amazing human that likes to connect and cares about people.
Yeah, he and his partner, Brian, business partners, they're fantastic people. But the point being about, who do you want to have come into your business orb? Referral clients are obviously one of the best ways to go. And so, we've found that for referral relationships, we have some internal systems that just keep those relationships vibrant with clients, and those clients ultimately bring in other clients because they enjoy what they've gotten and they want to share that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of passing business on to other people, but that's how we built the community primarily. Yes, there might be, I think last year we probably had maybe 15,000 books were sold of ours from the various editions for that. And yes, we do all of the same marketing on social media and other places, but the best clients for us really without question are referral clients. And so that's really kind of how we built the community.
Understood. And that is true for me as well. I mean, that is because then you attract the same kind of people. You attract the people that you like, and your best clients are the ones who are going to refer to you. So I completely relate to that. We are all about systems, and you teach about systems and controls. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about why systems are so important in scaling.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share it this way. Like one of my favorite analogies, I remember growing up, I used to watch this show on PBS, and it was called This Old House, and they would be remodeling. It seemed like the same house, but I'm sure it was multiple houses. And they'd have these wonderful explorations of the plumbing systems and the air conditioning systems. And what I realized is that most people who start a company, they built some degree of formal and informal systems for this old house from the 1920s. And then if they're fortunate enough to scale, it's like they go from this old house with the old electrical systems that were working, and all of a sudden now they're plugging in new air conditioning and 12 computers and all these new things, and the systems can't handle the load, the demand on it, and so they don't work. So I think probably the most important thing that I see for business owners, some people will say, Audie, I don't know if you've ever heard this, oh, we don't have systems. And I say, well, you do, you just don't have formalized systems, and the systems you have probably can't be refined. So
yeah, that's my line too, because when people say I don't have systems, I say, yes, you do. I mean, we all have a system. When we wake up in the morning, we have a system. I'm sure.
That's right.
That's why I tell people, I'm sure you're making your cup of coffee in the morning probably the same way. Maybe sometimes you make it a little bit different, but you probably have that's a system. You just don't have it documented, and you do not make it known to others.
Yeah, and when you talk about why for systems, the common reason is, oh, it gets you have a repeatedly good result, and that's true. But if we go back one more step, the real reason for the system initially is so that we can see what we're actually doing, and then the obvious low-hanging fruit changes are there. When we don't formalize it in writing in some fashion, then we don't think it through. But the moment we put it down, like I can remember, this is embarrassing, 16, 17 years ago, I can remember our client onboarding system. And this is a year or so into doing the coaching side of the business. And Audie, when someone finally wrote out that system, it was like 3 or 4 pages long, 25, 30 steps. And I'm looking at this horrified going, this is ridiculous to have all these steps, but they were doing all these different pieces. And if you were to go today, it's a much more streamlined process, obviously, but without formalizing it, I wouldn't have realized how hard we've made it for our team to onboard a new client. And that's just one example.
Yeah, that's true. So you gotta document it so you can see what you're doing, and then you can streamline it, and also for consistency purposes, right? Because then you can have now when somebody's onboarded, it's always going to be the same.
And even on the same token here with this, one of the things I'll share on the system side, this is a new insight for me, and we've been using with clients now for about a year and a half. What we've noticed is a lot of clients would fix something in their business because they had a fire or an emergency, something went wrong. They fix it, they would update the system because our clients are very systems driven. But then they would tell me that, David, I kept seeing this pattern. They would fix it, it would break. They would fix it, it would break. They would fix it and they would break. And so I'll just share something very new. We've been working with clients on this pattern we call FOC, fix, operationalize, culturalize. So we'll fix the problem. That usually requires more of the talented team members to do that. But now I've got to operationalize the fix, making sure I train team members and making sure that I stay on top of that system long enough to see that it really is being implemented. And we used to think that was enough. But what I recognize now, and we've added to the coaching layer, is this idea that I've got to stay focused on the operationalized fix long enough for it to become part of the culture of how we do things. And if I can do all those things, I improve it, I maintain it, and now it's owned forever. And I can do the next one. If I'm not careful, I keep putting out the same fire over and over again. And I have plenty of clients that were noticing these patterns. And so that's something new I would share with your audience.
That's great. And you're right, because we can fix it, but if we don't make sure that it's being rolled out to everyone, and they not just rolled out, but really understood, because that's part of how do you culturize it? How do you make it part of the culture? You have to make sure that if a person feels that that's their own, they're going to own it. And then they're going to use it. They're going to actually see the difference, and they will understand why, other than saying, well, otherwise they will say, well, yeah, the owner just decided to do it, but I'm going to go to my old ways. And that's what's happening. That's why it keeps breaking, because there is no conviction of this is the way we need to do it.
That's right. And the leadership, really what it takes to go from the fix is obvious to everybody. I need to look at the process. I need to tweak it, simplify it, add or subtract to it. Operationalize is a little bit fuzzier, which usually just means enough attention is there to train people on it, to pay attention to the results they're getting, to course correct and coach as they go. The culturize means I need to keep enough attention long enough. And I'll give an example for a client of ours. So we've got a client who runs a construction company. They do a good bit of business. They, maybe somewhere between $8-9 million a year in revenue. And in their business, they had a point where all of a sudden they were noticing with their coach that their gross profit margin, their profit before all the expenses, but after the cost of producing their service, went from what it was historically, and it dropped by about 15-16%, which is a big deal for them. That was the difference between their bottom line profit being at 12, 14, 16%, dropping into single digits. It really hurt them. And when they looked at it, what they noticed was their project teams that were managing the construction projects stopped doing their normal planning process. And I was talking with the owner, and he was very frustrated. He said, I've gone through it with them. I said, isn't that interesting? Okay. And as we looked at it, he had fixed it. He created the process where each week they would do planning together, and they would make sure that the right materials and the subs were all organized for the jobs. And then he trained everyone on it. He did a great job with that. But when he did that, he thought he was done. And Adi, he took his attention off of that. And I said, well, how much would you have made if you had just kept 15 minutes of your attention each week to make sure that planning had actually stayed long enough to then you can go from every week to you paying attention every 2 weeks, and then to every month. And the calculation showed it would have been worth probably $400,000 or $500,000 of profit to him. I said, well, let's do some math. In my thinking, that's about $40,000, $50,000 per hour. Would you take the job? And he laughed, and of course he got the point. I think business owners, we think we're done, but we're not done, because systems aren't just about the the process. They're about shaping behavior. And to shape
Right.
behavior requires continued attention long enough to really make that behavior go through. And I'm sure you've seen that with clients of yours as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell my clients, if you just want to document for the sake of documentation, we're not going to even do the project because it's going nowhere. It's the implementation that really matters. It's the cultural shift. It's being a process-driven leader, meaning you have to have your mindset towards, okay, yes, what is a process-driven leader? You have to have accountability, you have to have follow-through, you have to have clarity in your own mind. What is it that you want to accomplish and how to get to the final result? So I totally relate to that. Absolutely. David, what do you think? I mean, question that comes up a lot for me nowadays
Sure.
is, oh, AI can just do it for me, can just create the processes or can optimize my processes. I know what I say to that. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it is a great tool. We're playing around with Cowork now and Claude, and there's some cool stuff it can do. I used to get frustrated with how much copying and pasting I would have to do between ChatGPT and other places. And so all of it's heading in a direction where there will be a lot more integration and optimization. But when a client says that to me, I say three things. Number one, first and foremost, the actual know-how for a process, especially for your critical stuff, the non-important, the secondary or tertiary stuff, I don't mind a so-so process. I'll let AI take a crack at it. But every business has 2 to 5 processes that are really where your profit is created. Usually it's something on the front end to find and or close new business. Oftentimes it's 1, 2, or 3 processes in the actual production and fulfillment of your product or service. And then commonly there's something around the collection aspect and the leadership interaction part. For us, hiring has been a big one. So I'll include a hiring. So, in our business, there's probably 6 systems that matter more than everything else.
And your referral system is a very important one because you
Sure.
perfected it. And yes.
So when we go to that, I tell people, I say, first of all, those core systems, there's a lot of subtlety to them that's less about documenting, and it's more about how can I transfer knowledge effectively. And so the system becomes the anchor or the structure, the skeleton, through which I can train about the subtleties and the nuances that make that thing work. And so AI isn't going to do that for you. Number 2, we tell people, yes, use AI to create drafts or to shortcut. But if you're not careful, what'll happen is, like, I've got a client, he's got folders on his OneDrive, and you could click on it and you would see in there every training session he's done with his admin team, with his sales team. Every session is the recording and the transcript from AI. And he thinks he's systematized it. I'm laughing. I'm saying, you've got 56 hours there. Who is going to be able to use that in any useful way to produce the result that you want on your core thing? So that's the second. And the final one I would say, and I think this is important, AI is going to create a bloated system unless you're careful to go back and really shorten and sharpen. And so I love AI to draft. I was using it earlier today. I'm working on some improvements for our sales system. I said to AI, and I got my 5 different voicemail example drafts, and I took them and I used some of that and I drafted. What would have taken me an hour? It took me 15 minutes. I'll take the 45-minute savings, but I'm not going to outsource all of it because it doesn't have the experience set to use to get what I want. So I'm going to partner with it. And my good friend Rosario says, think of it as a coworker, not as completely doing it all by his or herself or itself in this case. That's what I say. What do you say? I'm curious.
I say, very similar is I love AI and I definitely educate myself on trying to be as current as I can, but it's a tool. I have to be the driver. It is a tool. It is similar to the analogy of you're not going to have, I hope you're not, have somebody on your team dictate the processes for you. You can extract information on how they do it, but you are still, as the owner of the business, like you said, in terms of the best practices, in terms of the direction, in terms of the vision, you have to lead. So an AI is a thought partner, but you're not the thought partner of the AI. It's not the other way around. Who is driving you or the AI?
Yeah.
And that's what we really need to figure it out. And also who is asking the questions. We know how to ask the right questions in order to get the right answers, and then evaluate. The evaluation, like you said, is so important. I was just having a conversation before recording this podcast with a client, and he mentioned, well, when I get something out of the AI, I have to look it over because it's not always true and doesn't always align to my business. So I have to know what questions to ask, and also how to ask the next and follow-up question, the follow-up question. So yeah, AI makes things very easy to edit, but the extraction of information and knowing which direction we are going, you definitely need to have the expertise.
And
The same
I
thing with
think,
marketing.
please go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I'm saying the same thing with marketing. So I have a good friend, and she has a marketing agency, and that conversation, of course, it's top of mind for everyone. And she said, yeah, but because she and her team does it they do it day in and day out, know what the latest tools are, they know how to use it, and they know how to get the results that are needed. So yes, you do want to use AI, but you have to still have the expertise of using it, how to ask, how to evaluate. And I would say also to a business owners, ask yourself, well, you have the AI, have you written your processes? Well, no. Why? Because the idea of AI can do it is it's just a generality. It's not really an action that you can take in order to do. And that is, I think, where we have a problem in terms of the gap between wanting to do it and actual execution.
Yeah, I was going to give two more pieces that I think, because I agree with what you've just said there, which is one is I look at AI as an automation possibility, and any kind of automation. I mean, I've learned this the hard way, building software. I mean, the first software I ever paid to have proprietary developed would have been 30 years ago. It was, you can imagine, it's 35 years ago. It was a voicemail system before there was, before websites were even ubiquitous. And so what I realized was in that process how much I spent extra by not having really having a very clear picture of what I wanted from the software. Same thing happened probably 25 years ago when I built my first proprietary CRM. I mean, nowadays all that stuff is platform based and it does it all. But what I've learned with automation is I don't start to create the automation in the tool or platform. I've got to figure it out longhand first. Then when I take the time to build the automation, it works. And so the same things with AI. It lets me build automations faster so I can experiment, but I have to make sure that I troubleshoot those things. And I'll give an example. We have a tech company. I was talking with their head of operations. They're an online retailer. They sell lots and lots and lots of clothing. And some of the reporting that used to have to be done by hand, this woman has set up some really good automations that's now Claude coworker, pulls the right spreadsheet and looks at it and gives her the first order interpretation of that. And it's been useful because it triggers the action for it. But like any automation, I'm going to have to, I don't start with this, this really fancy plan for it. I start with what is it I want on paper, and then I go to the automation for the help with it. And the last part on the AI side, I think we're going to find more and more and more that there will be easy, simple things that it can just take over and do. And that's great. But I think we're going to have to get really good about how can we train the AI usage in our company. My friend Rosario, again, she's got an AI company, and her comments are, what is your system for how you want to use AI in there? Like, it scares me to death how many companies are just letting their staff members use their own personal accounts. I tell all of our clients, don't be cheap with it, right? Pay the $20, $25, $30 a month per user, put it in there. Don't let it be used as part of the training data. Have some privacy protections in place with that. Be smart with that. And you know what? If you want to experiment with 2 or 3 different LLM tools, Notebook LLM, Claude, Gemini, Chat, probably at this point, what's most important for your audience here is they do need to just experiment with these different things. Right now, we're in the frontier days. We have not yet even gotten close to it. No one knows exactly what the end tools will be, but I think we're going to find more and more, you're going to find more and more integration where that will then automatically be able to access what you give it permission to do. And the agentic side is exciting. It used to be that you'd have to use third-party platform. Like you couldn't even send an email. With Cowork, I can say, in my inbox, I got an email from this person. Summarize it for me. Got it. Okay. Send them back this email. I love all those parts to it. But it's your comment, if it's a tool, is so important. It's not going to do all the thinking, because otherwise your business will become vanilla like everyone else's business. If you don't have some sauce to put on there to make a sundae, then you might as well say we have a shelf life and we're running out of time.
That's so true. So true. And I can relate to your stories. So between your 35 years and the 25 years, in between 30 years ago, when I started my career as an industry engineer, my job was to map out the process so a software engineer can come and create the software. So that's where I learned that having the process documented before you have the rigidity of a software is very important, and having that flow and then automate, it's super important. And that lesson really took me all the way. And today we have many clients that are coming to us because they realize that they want to automate. They want to have agents, but instead of making it a buzzword, oh yeah, we're going to create AI agents. Well, where are we going to create them, and how are those agents going to know what to do? They realize that they need those processes in place. So very good point. David, this has been a great conversation, and probably going to have many more. I'm going to invite you over and over so we can talk about the other aspects that you teach people about. But in the meanwhile, if our listeners would like to get a hold of you, learn more about the mastermind, about your coaching program, how can they do that?
Yeah, simplest way for them, if they're more of a visual person, go to MauiMastermind.com. On there, you can get access to, we have our business growth toolkit. Right there, you'll get a couple key videos and PDF tools that are some of our more popular. If you're more of a book type of person, I'm going to encourage them to get a copy of Build a Business, Not a Job. You can get it on Amazon. Real simple there, less than $10. That's probably the best two first tastes of what we do. And if it resonates, wonderful. If it doesn't, take what you can and make your business better from it.
Sounds great. Well, we'll include all of that in the show notes as well with links. And thank you again, David, for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you, Adi. I had so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.